Well, hundreds of thousands of people in southern China were cleaning up too, after powerful typhoon Ragasa crashed through the Hong Kong area yesterday, bringing down trees and even blasting signs off buildings. Businesses and schools closed today. Flooding from an overflowing dam left more than 3,000 homes without water, power, or gas. There are enough donations of food and bottled water, but supplies are low, and things like powdered milk. Hundreds of people still sheltering at evacuation centers, including a church and elementary school. Experts say a strange, never-before-seen bird found in Texas could be the product of climate change. Yeah, you've heard of blue jays. You may have even heard of green jays, but what about a Grue jay? Yeah, that's what scientists are calling this ultra-rare hybrid bird. For generations, blue jays were native mostly to the eastern part of the U.S., and the tropical green jay was largely isolated to Central America. Researchers believe over time, shifting weather patterns likely pushed the populations to converge right around San Antonio, Texas, which is exactly where the Grue jay was recently spotted.